Awakening does not arrive like sunlight through stained glass. It arrives like an earthquake that swallows the floor beneath you. Carl Jung once confessed that most people never survive their awakening, not because they are fragile, but because they carry the wrong map. And here is the forbidden truth. Awakening is not peace. It is panic, it is exile. It is the terrifying suspicion that you are losing your mind while everyone else seems perfectly fine. You wake in the night to dreams you cannot explain. You walk through the day with your skin buzzing, as if your own body has become foreign. You try to share it with someone, a partner, a friend, even a therapist, and their eyes glaze over. You wonder if you are broken. That is not failure, that is the beginning. Jung called it the night sea journey, a plunge into waters so black that your old identity cannot swim. Most people turn back. Some sink into collapse. Others fake it, building a luminous persona that hides the suffocation inside. This is why awakening is lethal, because it doesn't just challenge your beliefs, it burns them. Your religion, your relationships, your ambitions, even your own name, all set on fire. You are forced to stand in the smoke, not knowing if you are still human or becoming something else. Have you felt this? The fracture between your perception and the world's denial? You sense dishonesty in someone's tone, but the room insists everything is fine. You feel your chest tighten before disaster strikes, but everyone says you are overreacting. You dream of floods, fire, strangers' faces, and then watch them unfold in waking life. That dissonance is not madness, it is awakening. But your psyche does not want you awake, it wants you alive, and those are not the same. So it fights back, with rage, with terror, with loneliness, so sharp it feels like death itself. Most cannot endure. They retreat into the safety of sleep, they collapse into dysfunction, they pretend. But if you stay, if you refuse to run or fake serenity, something extraordinary begins. Jung himself tested this truth. At 38, at the height of his career, he stepped deliberately into madness. For 6 years, he recorded visions that would have institutionalized anyone else. He saw floods of blood sweeping across Europe. He conversed with dead figures who spoke with terrifying clarity. He painted his own fantasies of murder and chaos. His family feared he was gone. His colleagues abandoned him. He nearly lost everything. And yet from that descent he returned with something no one else possessed, a map through the darkness, not for spiritual comfort, for psychological survival. Here is the dangerous secret he discovered. Awakening is not ascent, it is a series of deaths. Every illusion, every mask, every false certainty is dismantled, and the you that began the journey cannot remain intact unless you know the traps, unless you recognize the invisible snares that destroy almost everyone who begins this path. Jung identified them. He saw them in his patients. He lived them in his own descent. And if you ignore them, you will not survive. The first trap wears the mask of progress. It convinces you that you are becoming more spiritual while secretly feeding on your foundations. The second disguises itself as enlightenment while inflating your ego until it explodes. The third greets you when you return to ordinary life, where family and friends unconsciously try to break what you have become. These are not metaphors. They are psychological landmines, and unless you know how to step carefully, they will detonate under your feet. Stay with me, because what you will hear today is not comfort. It is not positivity. It is the truth Jung risked everything to write down. By the end of this journey, you will know the 3 deadly traps that destroy awakening souls and the rare techniques Jung discovered to pass through them without losing yourself or your sanity. Most people never make it, but some do, and if you are still listening, perhaps you are one of them. Carl Jung was not a man chasing mystical fireworks. He was a scientist, a respected doctor. At 38, he was at the peak of his career, wealthy, admired, secure. And then he did something unthinkable. He stepped deliberately into madness. For 6 years, he recorded visions so intense that his family feared he would never return. He described rivers of blood flooding across Europe, years before World War I erupted. He spoke with figures no one else could see. Voices so sharp, he called them menacing, as if psychosis was at the door. His colleagues turned their backs. His reputation trembled on the edge of ruin. His children whispered about his strange behavior. At night, he filled page after page with drawings of serpents, mandalas, palaces, and corpses. He painted what most would burn. He called it his descent into the underworld. Imagine the courage, a man at the height of success, choosing to risk everything: career, sanity, even family, for visions that tore his mind apart. Because Jung understood something most people never dare to admit. The unconscious is not a metaphor. It is a a living wilderness inside us, and if you run from it, it hunts you. If you face it, it remakes you. He built what became known as the Red Book, a private journal of dialogues with his own psyche. In those pages he met Philemon, the inner wise man who guided him through chaos. But before Philemon appeared, Jung faced darker figures, murderers, deceivers, fragments of his own rage and fear. He did not silence them, he painted them, he argued with them, he let them speak. This is what Jung later called active imagination, not repressing the shadow, not pretending it doesn't exist, but entering dialogue with it. Most people would have called it madness. For Jung, it became the very foundation of depth psychology. But make no mistake, it nearly destroyed him. He confessed, "I was menaced by a psychosis. At times he doubted he would survive, and yet he endured. And from that endurance he brought back something no one else had, a map of the underworld." He realized that spiritual awakening is not about ascending into light. It is about descending into the places you have buried. Rage, lust, grief, even joy too raw to bear. These exiled parts of the psyche do not disappear. They wait, and when awakening begins, they erupt. Most people can't face them. They collapse. They pretend. They die inside their illusions. But Jung proved survival is possible, not by denying the shadow, but by embracing it. Think of what this means for you. The fear you feel at night. The dissonance between what you sense and what the world insists is true. The shame that tells you your visions are too much. All of that has a map. Jung walked it, and he returned with techniques that can save not just your sanity, but your life. This is why his story matters. Because if a man who had everything, respect, success, security, could risk it all to descend into darkness, then your descent is not failure, it is initiation. So let us follow his footsteps. Because what he uncovered were not abstract theories, they were traps, real, devastating traps that devour people in the middle of awakening. And unless you know what they are, unless you can recognize their disguises, you will not survive what's already begun inside you. Most people imagine awakening as a staircase into light. You meditate, you chant, you radiate peace. At the end of the journey, you become serene, untouchable, enlightened. That is the myth. And like all myths, it hides a darker truth. Jung discovered that awakening is not illumination, it is demolition. It does not polish your life, it rips it apart. It does not crown you with halos. It strips you of every mask you thought was your face. Think about what really happens. You lose interest in the roles that once defined you. Conversations that used to feel safe now feel hollow. The job you thought was your purpose becomes unbearable. The friendships that held you together begin to dissolve. This is not bliss, it is disintegration. The illusions that kept you sane, the lies you told yourself just to function, are torn away. And when they fall, you are left naked in a world that suddenly looks hostile. Jung wrote, "We need our illusions to survive. They are not mistakes, they are scaffolding. We build personas to be loved. We build projections to stay blind to pain. We construct entire identities just to endure the day. Awakening destroys them, not gently, not gradually, brutally. Your psyche does not whisper, it erupts, and this is why so many collapse, because the very structures that kept them standing, family roles, religious beliefs, social masks, are suddenly gone. Imagine a cathedral collapsing in a storm. You're left standing in rubble, not sure whether to rebuild or to flee. Does this sound familiar? That sense of alienation, as if the old world has lost its color? You go to work and everything feels like theater. You listen to friends laugh, but hear an emptiness behind their jokes. You smile at family gatherings, while your body aches with unspoken truths. This fracture is the essence of awakening. It is not failure, it is not insanity, it is the price of clarity. But here lies the danger. Your psyche fights to keep you unconscious. It will weaponize your own emotions to drive you back to sleep. Doubt, fear, shame, even physical pain. Anything to keep the scaffolding intact. And if you don't know what's happening, you believe the attack. You think you are collapsing when in truth you are shedding. Jung compared it to alchemy. The fire that melts the metal is the same fire that forges it. But in the middle, all you see is destruction. So let us be clear. Awakening is not bliss. It is not serenity. It is not ascension. It is death. Of illusions. Of false identities. Of every mask you thought was you. And until you accept this death, you cannot be reborn. That is why so many never survive. They cling to the mask even as it burns. They beg to keep their illusions. They run from the fire that was meant to forge them. But those who endure, those who let the scaffolding fall, discover something extraordinary. Beneath the ruins lies a foundation that was never built by the world, a ground that cannot be taken away. This is what Jung called the self, the center beyond masks, beyond personas, beyond illusions. But before you can touch it, you must walk through destruction. So remember this: if your life feels like it is falling apart, it may not be a mistake. It may be the very sign that awakening has begun. Awakening is not a gentle unfolding. It is a battlefield, and the psyche has weapons sharper than any enemy outside you. Jung discovered 3 psychological landmines, traps that detonate the moment you step too close to truth. Most people never see them until it is too late. Let us name them. The shadow eruption. All your life you buried what you could not face. Your rage, your selfishness, your envy, even your joy that felt too much. You built a mask so convincing you believed it was you. Then awakening begins, and the mask splits. The shadow does not dissolve, it erupts. Jung saw it in his patients, the kind monk who began dreaming of violence, the healer who preached unconditional love but dreamt of torture, the woman who never raised her voice yet woke at night shaking with murderous rage. They thought they were becoming evil. Jung told them, "You are not becoming evil, you are becoming whole." Wholeness includes the very parts you rejected, but most cannot accept this. They repress harder, or they act out, collapsing into addiction, scandal, even psychosis. Ask yourself, what part of you have you buried so deeply that you fear its return? The ego hijack. Everyone speaks of ego death as if it were the goal, but Jung warned, the ego does not die. It fights back, and it fights dirty. How? By hijacking your awakening. You have a vision. You feel synchronicities align. You touch something numinous, something vast, and then the ego whispers, "I did this. I am chosen. I am awakened." Suddenly, the messenger becomes confused with the message. Jung called this inflation, the most dangerous illusion of all. He documented it again and again. A businessman who saw perfect synchronicities believed he was destined to teach humanity. Within a year, he had abandoned his family, started a movement, and collapsed into ruin. This is the trap, believing that because the divine moved through you, you are divine. It feels like enlightenment. It is actually possession. Ask yourself, when you feel special, untouchable, certain, is that awakening, or is it ego inflation in disguise? The return collapse. Even if you face the shadow, even if you survive the ego, there is one more trial, returning to the world. Jung called it the problem of the returned hero. In myth, the hero descends, finds treasure, and comes back to share it. But the tribe rarely welcomes them. Why? Because your awakening is a mirror. Your authenticity exposes everyone else's masks, and most people would rather kill the mirror than remove their disguise. Jung documented countless cases. A woman who integrated her shadow returned home, only to face a husband who mocked her changes, children who clung tighter, parents who whispered she was unstable. Dinner tables became battlefields of subtle projections. Her truth unsettled their illusions, and they tried unconsciously to pull her back. This is why so many abandon their awakening, not because they lack strength, but because belonging feels safer than truth. Ask yourself, when you feel the pressure to shrink back into the old self, will you betray your awakening to stay loved? The void. Some survive all 3 traps: shadow, ego, return, only to face something worse, emptiness. Jung called it the void. No old identity, no new one, only free fall through psychological space. Most people panic and grab the first belief system that promises safety. That is how cults are born. That is how rigid dogmas form. They trade one cage for another. But the void is not punishment. It is the threshold. If you can endure it without rushing to fill it, something extraordinary takes shape, the self, a ground not built by society, but by the unconscious itself. Ask yourself, when everything familiar dissolves, can you resist the urge to cling? Can you let the void hollow you until something real emerges? Why these traps matter. Shadow, ego, return, void. Each one feels like the end. Each one has destroyed countless souls. But Jung left us techniques to survive them, not by escaping, but by walking through consciously. Before we uncover those techniques, pause, breathe. Notice which trap you feel pressing against your life right now, because recognition is the first step to survival. Awakening is not abstract. It is lived. It enters kitchens, bedrooms, dinner tables, and it leaves marks no one else can see. Let me show you. Scene 1. The family dinner. She had done the work. 2 years of therapy. Journals filled with dreams. Shadow confronted. Tears shed. Clarity rising. She thought she was ready to live again. Then came the dinner table. Her mother asked casually, "Are you sure you're okay? You seem different." Her husband joked. "Remember when you used to be fun?" Her children tugged at her sleeve, demanding the woman she used to be. She sat in silence, feeling their projections swirl like smoke around her. To them, her awakening was not growth, it was threat. They wanted the mask back, the version of her that kept everything predictable. She realized in that moment, to stay awake meant to lose the comfort of belonging, and the ache of that choice cut deeper than any shadow. Scene 2. The spiritual teacher. He was admired, never angry, always calm. A guru to dozens who followed his every word. But then the dreams began. Violence, lust, rage, images he couldn't bear to admit. So he doubled down. More meditation, more mantras, more denial. And then, one day, it spilled into daylight. A scandal, a betrayal, a collapse that left him exiled from the very community he built. Jung warned of this: when the shadow is repressed, it does not disappear. It waits, and when it erupts, it destroys everything constructed on the lie of light. He was not becoming evil, he was meeting himself, but he could not survive the meeting. Scene 3. The businessman. In his 40s, successful, admired, he began to notice synchronicities. Every thought manifested, every meeting aligned, every desire materialized. He felt chosen. He believed he had cracked reality itself. Within months, he left his family, quit his work, started a movement. Within a year, he was homeless, muttering about simulation, convinced he alone saw truth. This was not enlightenment, it was ego inflation, a divine spark hijacked by the ego until it exploded. Jung spent years helping him crawl back to ordinary reality. The man survived, but barely. Scene 4. The woman alone at dawn. She walked in forests at sunrise, unable to bear the chatter of friends who seemed asleep. Every conversation felt like nails scraping her skull. Every social smile like betrayal of her vision. So she withdrew. She filled notebooks with images she did not understand. Towers, serpents, floods. People whispered she was strange, cursed, unstable. But Jung would have said, she is not mad. She is perceiving ahead of her time. Her loneliness was not defect. It was the price of seeing too much. Why these stories matter. Do you recognize yourself in any of them? The dinner table that suffocates you. The shadow that breaks through dreams. The ego that whispers you are chosen. The loneliness that makes you doubt your sanity. This is why most people collapse. Because these scenes are not theory. They are lived agony, and when they come, they feel like proof you are broken. But Jung's truth was the opposite. These moments are the very signs that awakening has begun. The breakdown is not failure. It is the doorway. If the shadow erupts, if the ego inflates, if the tribe rejects you, how do you survive? Jung's answer was simple, but never easy. You don't escape the darkness. You learn to walk through it. He left us a set of practices, not philosophies, but survival skills. 1. Active imagination. Speak to the shadow. Most people repress what they fear. Jung did the opposite. He gave it a voice. When images of violence rose in him, he did not run. He painted them. He dialogued with them. He asked, "What truth do you carry that I am too weak to hold?" You can do the same. When a dream unsettles you, write it down. Speak to the figure in your journal. When rage rises, sketch it. Give it a face. Do not suppress. Engage. This is not about becoming the shadow. It is about integrating it, so it no longer controls you from the dark. 2. Ego relativization. Shrink the chosen one. The ego is cunning. It hijacks divine sparks and whispers, "You are special. You are chosen. You are awake." Jung warned, this is the most dangerous illusion. The antidote is constant humility. When you feel grand, ask, which archetype am I identifying with? When you feel chosen, ask, chosen by what part of my psyche? Relativizing the ego means remembering, you are not the source, you are the vessel. Like a radio carrying a signal. Powerful, yes, but not the signal itself. 3. Selective participation. Dose the world. The awakened cannot unsee what they see. Every conversation reveals projections. Every dinner table feels like theater. Jung's solution was not total withdrawal, nor blind immersion. It was dosing, strategic retreats, sacred spaces, short exposures with recovery time. He built his tower at Bollingen as a refuge, not escape, but necessity. Your version might be a room, a journal, a morning ritual, a place where consciousness is not bargained away. This is survival, engaging without being consumed. 4. Holding the tension. Live the paradox. Awakening creates opposites, shadow and light, ego and self, isolation and connection. Most people collapse into one side. They pick light, deny dark. Pick ego, deny self. Pick tribe, deny truth. Jung called the higher path the transcendent function, holding both without collapse. When anger rises, do not deny it, but do not act it out. Hold it. When loneliness aches, do not run back, but do not disappear. Hold it. In the tension, a third way emerges, a bridge, a transformation that logic alone cannot reach. 5. Symbolization. Give chaos form. Jung survived his visions because he gave them shape. He painted, wrote, carved. Chaos became symbol, and symbol became medicine. You can do this too. Turn your nightmares into drawings. Turn your grief into ritual. Turn your anxiety into words. When chaos gains form, it stops devouring. It starts teaching. Why these steps matter. Because awakening is not about avoiding death. It is about dying consciously, not once, but again and again. The shadow must be faced. The ego must be shrunk. The tribe must be endured. The void must be held. These techniques are not glamorous. They do not make you radiant overnight. They keep you alive. They transform collapse into initiation. Now pause. Ask yourself, which of these steps do you need most right now? Write it down. Whisper it out loud. Anchor it in your body. Because recognition is the first spark of integration. And integration is the difference between being destroyed by awakening and being remade through it. Awakening is not an event. It is a lifestyle of dying. Every day another illusion burns. Every week another mask collapses. Every year another identity dissolves. Most people cannot bear this. They want awakening without death. They want transformation without fire. They want wholeness without the wound. Impossible. Jung discovered what few ever dare to say. You don't survive awakening. You die into it. And from those deaths something greater emerges. Not higher, not holier, but more real. He called this process individuation. The privilege of a lifetime, he said, is to become who you truly are. But he added the truth most ignore, that self includes everything you are not. The murderer and the saint. The fool and the genius. The shadow and the light. This is the method, not to choose, not to suppress, not to pretend, but to integrate, to hold the opposites until a new wholeness forms. That is why Jung built his Red Book, why he painted visions instead of erasing them, why he spoke with his shadows instead of denying them. He discovered that the parts we fear most carry the very power we need to live. And here lies the catharsis. Your breakdown is not the end, it is the beginning. Your anxiety is not madness, it is the body's alarm that you are entering new territory. Your loneliness is not punishment, it is proof that you no longer belong to illusions. Your dissolution is not failure, it is initiation. So let us return to you. If you are listening now, it is because some part of you already knows. You have felt the fracture, you have sensed the shadow, you have resisted the ego's inflation, you have tasted the void, and you are still here. That means you are already surviving what most never do. Now the question is not whether you will make it. The question is, will you allow it to complete its work? Will you let it strip you? Will you let it remake you? Will you let it reveal the self that was always waiting beneath the masks? If these words touched you, don't leave them in silence. Write in the comments a single sentence that begins, "I am still awakening." Let the thread become proof that none of us walk this path alone. And if you want more, if you want me to go deeper into each of these traps, into Jung's exact exercises, into the hidden symbols of your own psyche, then write, "Yes, I want more." Your words may be the spark another soul needs tonight. Remember, you are not going crazy, you are going sane. It only feels insane because the world is still asleep. Awakening is not for us all, but for those who endure. It is the beginning of a life more whole, more dangerous, and more true than anything you have known. So stay close to yourself, stay close to your fire, and stay close to each other. We'll meet again in the next video, where another hidden door will open, another fragment of shadow will turn into light. Until then, walk gently, and don't forget, even in your darkest descent, you are not alone.